like to do with you, first of all, is just say a couple of things about a few issues that are going on here, and then open it up for any of your comments or questions, and we'll go to that point here. There are going to be a lot of you that are not going to be able to ask the question that you want. I'd still tell you, when I made the joke earlier about writing, do it, please. Write the emails, which can be simply by going to house.gov and scrolling down to my name and sending it to us, or a simple letter that can either go to Washington or to Ogden. If you're going to write a letter, it's faster actually if you go to Ogden, and they will send it on to Washington, because otherwise it has to go through to make sure that you're not trying to poison me if you send it directly to Washington. And we also, though, did have an opportunity, because we knew that some of you would not have a chance to do it. We have some cards that you can fill out if you'd like to leave a comment tonight. When we get closer to the end of this, we'll pass those out. So if you haven't had a chance to say anything and you still want to make a comment, please feel free to do that. I want to talk to you for just a minute about three particular issues, and then go on to take comments that you have. To be honest with you, for this area especially, I want to talk very briefly about the stimulus package, especially for here in Layton, about the defense, because that was the last budget issue we went through before I left and back out here. And then thirdly, a bit about health care, and then we'll open it up from there. Let me talk first about stimulus. The problem I have is we've had some reports back on the stimulus bill so far, and there seems to be an erratic amount of spending, which means the spending has not gone out on a systematic or orderly fashion. Sometimes it's gone out quickly, sometimes not. And we also have had some anecdotal evidence that maybe there have been some strange programs that have been funded with the stimulus money. The bottom line with the stimulus package is that a lot of people are now saying it probably has not had much of an effect on the course of the recession as it moved forward. If so, I want to see some more data before we go on with that. But if so, I really don't get a whole lot of satisfaction saying I told you so, but I voted against that. I was going to tell you the rules later on, but we got a long way to go. We don't applaud. The second one, though, deals with the military, because that was the issue that is extremely significant to me. As you know, I did everything I could to make sure that the military continued to fund the F-22. That some people have read that was simply because I was looking after jobs in Utah. Actually, there are very few jobs in Utah directly related to the building of the F-22. It is true that Hill will do the repair work for it, but they'll do the repair work for anything we have in the Air Force. The reason I was so significant or important, that is so important to me, is quite frankly that in the Korean War, at great expense of both lives and money, we gained air superiority. Air superiority we have had ever since that time, to the point that very few countries actually tried to threaten our air superiority. To the soldiers on the ground, having air superiority is extremely important because it means we open the door, and then they don't have to be looking over their shoulders wondering if the sound they hear is from a good airplane or an enemy airplane. And if they need some kind of air support, they can call it, and it will be there. The F-22 is the newest fighter we've had in over 30 years. The F-16 and the F-15 that are currently flying are good planes, but they're over 30 years old. Before I was elected to Congress, we had some war games using F-15s with the Indian Air Force. And I hate to say this, but we were surprised at the technological advancement of the Indian Air Force, which simply means the air technology that we have today, just with 15s and 16s, puts us equivalent to second and third world countries. The only way we were able to be successful was because of the acumen and the ability of our pilots. When you have air superiority, it requires you to have technical superiority and then the numbers to maintain it. The F-22 puts us decades ahead of everybody else in technical superiority. When that program was originally instituted, we were supposed to build 750 of those planes. The military has told us in 30 different analyses over 15 years, 380 of those planes maintains the status quo of air superiority. 243 is the minimum number And at that number, there is a modest risk to our air superiority. 187, which is where we have capped the F-22 right now, is a number that has no military equation whatsoever. The Air Combat Command simply said that with 187 planes, the Air Force cannot maintain its air responsibilities. The Air Force Chief of Staff in our committees, when asked if 187 are the number we need, or the number you think we can afford, he said the number I think we can afford. But he also said 187 would be okay if we have a one-front conflict. We have never planned on having the ability to defend ourselves only on one side or one conflict. So it's been two or multiple ones. I'm sorry, 187 just puts us at risk. Now I know what they were saying is it's an expensive plane. If you were going to build 750 and you're only doing 187, the expense per plane goes up significantly. But it is not simply a Cold War relic, it is what we need for the future. And yes, we have never used it in combat yet. That's the goal. You want to be so far ahead. They don't have to use that. Here is the concern I have. The Russians are already building a new generation of fighter. They are scheduled to build 200 to 300 more than they will need. They will sell those other fighters for balance of trade to probably countries like Venezuela, who wants them, and Iran, and Syria. These are not great elements. If we cap the number of F-22s, at the same time the Russians are selling a lot of fifth-generation fighters around the world, at the same time this administration wants to take 250 airplanes out of the Air Force inventory and not replace them, which is the other thing that frightens me about the viability of go. Well, we are dangerous as far as where our air superiority will be. The idea is we'll fill it up with F-35s. F-35 under every kind of good condition will not be available until 2014 at the earliest. And if there is any kind of slow up, it will be later than that. I'm sorry, to me this is a very dangerous military position. What I have said does not necessarily hurt the viability of Hill. If they actually cut out those 250 planes, we will lose about 800 jobs at Hill. Most of the military, but there will be some civilian jobs. What I worry about is the future of the 388th and the 419th at Hill, because they need those planes, and they will go from 3 squadrons down to 2. That's very dangerous for the future. So that is one of those areas in which I am deeply concerned. I am also deeply concerned when we then cut our missile defense system. I'm sorry, they say no one knows how many missiles we need, and that's probably accurate, which is why I'd like to have more than fewer. But we are scheduled to have 44 missiles to defend this country against incoming missiles from places like North Korea in 2 different areas. This administration decided to cut it from 44 to 30 and keep them all in Alaska. Even though the missile silos are built, they're ready, all we need to do is put the rockets in there and we're okay. In addition to that, they decided to cut and cap the Minuteman III system. In addition to that, there is a kinetic missile system that they decided to cut altogether. The kinetic system was supposed to be a mobile system that could be moved so you could intercept a missile before it ever hit the apex of its trajectory from an unfriendly country. All of those scare me as far as the defense of this country. If indeed North Korea was to send a missile towards Hawaii, we would probably fire at least 4 to bring it down, which means we have 26 left. I'm not comfortable with that scenario, and I'm also not comfortable that you can turn on and off the industrial base that builds those. That decision will cost jobs in northern Utah. It will cost at least 500 jobs because the rocket motors for those missiles are built here in Utah. And if indeed they decide then to postpone the space shuttle program and stop the Ares, there could be another 1,000 jobs in northern Utah that would be at stake.